Please do. All right, welcome, folks. We're just getting a few people in the real door and a few people in the Zoom room, so we'll be starting up in just a few minutes. Thank you guys very much for joining us for our first Coffee with the Principal session for this school year. If you've been with us before for these, you probably understand our basic ground rules on this is really about providing information for you guys and answering any questions that you have. So during the session, we will ask you to keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking. But by all means, if you do have questions for us, or if you have questions here with us in the room, that's the reason that we do it. So please make sure that you ask. We will run through with an open chat feature. So if you do have any questions that you would rather put in the chat, feel free to do so. Mrs. Grassi will be monitoring the chat for us, so I might not see those questions right away, but we will not end the session without addressing all of those. We will go off of a script today, so there'll be some general topics. So if your topic runs into or falls under one of those general areas, we'll do our best to get to it during that point in time. And then if you have any questions that are more unique to your own children as opposed to the group, feel free. We can take those either at the end of the meeting or in a separate setting. So if there's something specific to your kids, we want to make sure we address those too. But if they aren't appropriate for the whole group, we'll take care of them that way. We are recording this session, so if you do miss out or somebody wants to connect to it later, it'll be up within the next 48 hours on our YouTube channel on the website. So we'll have that again. So we will have this session recorded as well. So it looks like we got the majority of folks with us, either here in person or here in the room. And so we'll get started. Thank you very much for joining our October Coffee with the Principal session. Sitting at home, you're responsible for your own coffee, but here we do have a little for you. So if you're close, come join us in Trestle Hall. We've got a few folks that are in here. Today we have 4 main topics that we're going to address with you guys. One is academic progress. We recently got the results of our state testing. They just started being reported in, so I'll give you a snapshot of what that's looking like and some of the initiatives that we have to increase academic progress. We'll do a health, safety, and wellness update, as well as a facilities update, some things that are being either fixed, repaired, created here at school. Go over our school events and activities, and then, like I said, answer any questions that you may have. So please don't be shy. We have a smaller group than normal so this is really about you. So if you're taking the time to be with us, we want to make sure that it's worth it. So we'll do our best, like I said, to share stuff with you, and feel free to ask any questions. Before we start up, though, any burning questions? Did anybody show up to say, I need to know this, and we can start there? Are you guys okay? If anybody on the Zoom has any burning questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. And then if I don't see any, I'll just go over with some of the regular agenda items. All right, seeing none and no brave souls so far, we will move in to our academic progress. As you may have seen, just this past week, test scores were released for the CASP. The CASP is our state testing that we do in the spring of every year. And we're still analyzing those. So we're going to have some more detailed disaggregation of data as we get a little bit more information back. But our scores are kind of mirroring those across the state of California, which are showing that we've seen lower progress since COVID. So there's that COVID slide that we haven't seen the full bounce. Fairly flat scores in our language arts. And we fortunately have seen a pretty significant gain in our math. So I'll go over those stuff with you right now. The math proficiency. So the way the state works is they break the test scores up into 4 categories. And those categories are kids that are proficient, they're advanced, they're approaching the standards, or that they're below the standards. In our math, we have 52% of our students that are falling in that proficient or advanced category. The good news is that's 5% up from last year. It's 17% above the state average. So our students are significantly exceeding students statewide. But we're seeing 52%. And so when we kind of look at that number, we've got 52% who are proficient or advanced, 29% that are nearly meeting standard, and then about 20 that are below. So by our standards, they aren't as high as we'd like them to be. They're about 4 percentage points below where we were at COVID. So we've seen a lot of recovery and a big gain this past year. So the math results are encouraging, but we're still going to work on them for sure. One of the reasons we think that we saw some of this gain is last year we put in a couple programs. We put in a program that we piloted in select grade levels called MAP Accelerator. And if you're familiar with the MAP testing, we do those several times per year. And there are internal benchmarks that can not only tell us student progress, but if students have areas that they're excelling in or need to work on, it tells us those specific areas. And they're a really good instructional tool. The challenge with MAP testing is oftentimes teachers weren't real clear as to what exactly to do with that information. And the MAP Accelerator program that we piloted last year, we piloted in our 3rd and 4th grades, and so with some of our tutoring kids, we saw really good growth in that. In fact, our 3rd grade was our highest performing grade that we had. So we have expanded that MAP Accelerator into all grades, at least all grades that use MAP testing. So I believe we're using it at 3rd and up. So we got 3rd and up using that, and we're really optimistic about the results. The nice thing about MAP Accelerator is that it addresses 2 challenges that we've had. And those challenges are, how do you support kids mathematically who are below grade level and need some fundamental skills? And then how do you work on challenging those kids that are above? And what the MAP Accelerator does is it says this is where a student is, integrates through Khan Academy, and then starts directing lessons towards wherever the child is. So we're optimistic that that is going to continue some of these gains that we've seen in the math. We have resumed after school tutoring for math. So we sent some invitations out for after school tutoring to some students that were falling in those below grade level areas. And there are still some openings for our math tutoring. So if that's something that may be of interest to you, let us know. But we did do some invitations to some students that were in that below category. And then we are talking with our team about a possible math adoption for elementary. We've had the same math curriculum for quite some time, and the teachers like some things and they feel challenged by some others. We saw some good gains in our middle school math, our 7th and 8th grade math this past year, concurrent to a new adoption of curriculum. So considering that on the elementary side as well. The ELA scores, not as impressive as the math. We ended up dropping 2 percentage points from the prior year. We're at the 50% mark with kids that are proficient or advanced, with another, similar to the math, another 29% that were nearly meeting those standards. It's above the state average, but unlike the math, it's 2 percentage points instead of 17. And so the ELA is something we're really looking at as far as how are we going to make some gains and how are we going to start to recoup some of those pre-COVID losses. What we're seeing in there on the preliminary results is the most challenged students on the ELA, on the English Language Arts tests, are those students that are English learners or reclassified English learners. So we're just starting to get that data in, and we're going to start to take a look at that. So a lot of our initiatives and efforts on the ELA side is to look at both early literacy and how are we supporting our English learners. So we had a really good initiative this summer with our primary teachers. So our kindergarten, our 1st grade, our reading specialists, our reading specialist support team, our English learner team, to receive what's called Orton Gillingham training. So if you've ever heard people talking about the science of reading, Orton Gillingham is oftentimes what they're referring to. So we've had some very heavy training. I'm really impressed with our teaching staff for putting in that time and commitment over the summertime. Typically, one of the perks of teaching is you don't do that hard work over the summer, and that group of folks really did. So I do expect us to see us expanding upon that, and also looking at the benefits of that OG training. We have expanded our reading supports. When we initially expanded our reading specialist to full-time, we added in additional instructional aides to support the reading program. We pushed very heavily into second and third grade reading supports with the belief that if we got students connected to being strong readers at second and third grade, it carries forevermore. And then this thing called COVID rolled around and impacted those efforts to support kids at those ages. So we're seeing more of our middle schoolers struggling with some fundamental reading skills. It's not that they cannot read, it's that many of them are not reading at the standards that we would expect for our middle schoolers. So we are expanding our reading supports to provide more direct services to our middle school students. And we've also expanded our EL supports. So we have Mrs. Grano now is our full-time EL teacher. We did not have a full-time teacher for the majority of last school year, and she's doing a fabulous job with her team, not only connecting to families, but connecting direct services to students and supporting teachers in the classroom. We'll also be resuming our after-school EL tutorial coming up soon. So if your student is an English learner, look for that. We'll have additional supports for those students after school. The other thing that we're working on collectively as a school is our E3 project, and that stands for Educator Effectiveness and Evaluation. And what we're doing most of those Thursdays when your students go home early, our teachers are in this room here in Trussell Hall, and they're working on teacher effectiveness strategies. So we have some teams that are working on assessment. We have teams that are working on reading intervention, teams that are working on math. And our goal is to improve our teacher effectiveness, our differentiation of student groups to increase those student outcomes. So that's kind of the short story of that. You will see a much bigger presentation on testing results, most likely in January or February. Those of you familiar with the reporting process of schools might be familiar with the LCAP. There is now an LCAP mid-year report, and that reports out on all of the data that's tied to the LCAP. And the LCAP is very heavy on student supports for English learners and interventions, expenses, that kind of thing. So look for that in January, February, and we'll bring some of that data to the Coffee with the Principal that falls around there. Any other questions on academics? Jenny, do you have anything so far? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is health, safety, wellness. For those of that have been doing the Coffee with the Principal for a long time, you know that the majority of these were spent talking about COVID and COVID mitigations and all that kind of stuff. I wish I could say that COVID's gone, but it's still around. But I am happy to say it's not impacting our school environment in the ways that it did before. There's no talk of school shutdowns, and there's no talk of sending kids home and modified days and all those kind of things. However, I was looking at our statistics, our COVID statistics. This time last year, we actually have 3 times as many cases now than we did at this time last year. Part of that was this time last year, we had very few cases to start that school year. We only had about 10, 11 cases or so to start the school year. So we got to the end of October, didn't have many, and it kind of ramped up later. We're seeing some steady cases come through. Saw a surge this current week, especially among some of our 8th grade students. So this year so far, we have 27 COVID cases, and nearly all of them are school impacted. So what I mean by that is in the past, when we're reporting COVID cases on a dashboard, we talk about school impacted, meaning students that were with COVID and likely able to spread COVID on our school campus versus those that were home and had never come onto campus. Main reason we're seeing more school impacted is because people are living their lives in a lot more normal way, which is fabulous, but it does mean that we do see some kids at school that are showing up with COVID. Like I said, we've had 27 cases this year. We do continue our daily mitigation efforts, and we'll continue them at least through the cold and flu season. And part of that is daily disinfection of classrooms. We're still have an additional custodial support spray all the classrooms and spray all the rooms every night. So we continue to do the mitigation efforts, but very little by way of masking or separation or isolation. Students who do contract COVID, it used to be essentially a 2-week time where kids were out of school. They've greatly reduced that time frame. And so now if a student or staff member is positive with COVID, they can return on the 6th day as long as their symptoms are improving. So there is no testing requirement to come back as far as testing negative. It really is tied to waiting for a set period of time. And like I said, it's that 5 days return on the 6th. And that clock starts the day after either a positive test obtained or symptoms were developed. So that time frame is cut down a lot, which is really helpful. And then when students do return, they are supposed to be wearing masks for a short period of time after that. Very difficult to regulate in this current environment, but that is one of the things that we kind of look at there. We do have free test kits available in the office. So if you do want COVID testing for any reason, we have an ample supply right now. So if you want them, feel free to pick them up with Maria in the office. We are shutting down the primary health testing option that we had in the office. So some of you may have registered through primary health and got some tests through primary health in the office. Those are also rapid tests, but the funding source for that is going away, but the funding source for the take-home test is continuing. So we'll continue to have those for you. But that's the COVID situation right now, which is good. And we have actually, we talked about this last year as well, with our students back, shifted a little bit away from full focus on health of students to focus on safety of students. And we really wanted to thank the parents for your patience on the controlled entry system that we had in the office. We got some mixed reviews as far as some parents that didn't love the idea of showing IDs and being delayed and so forth. But I really appreciate you and your support with that. It really does create a safer campus environment and a feeling of safety for those that work and learn here. So we appreciate you cooperating with us on the controlled entry system that we have. We had non-student day earlier this month. We had the safety expert from San Diego County Office of Education come out and meet with us, again, right here in Trussell Hall, to talk about some of our safety mitigation efforts and to review some of the ways that we drill and practice for active threats or wildfires or anything else that could bring harm here to our school. And we were really pleased that the programs, the procedures that we have in place are as they should, but we were also really encouraged by the fact that there's always something to learn. And so we'll be continuing to tweak those policies to make sure that we are taking proactive steps as far as those things go. We do monthly drills. So if you do come to school and there's a little sign on the door, we try to let you know if there's a drill that's going on. But we do monthly drills. And we had our earthquake drill earlier this month. We've had some fire drills. We'll have secure campus and lockdowns and so forth. So a lot of things for us to do to be proactive. But I can tell you that San Pasquale is a very safe place. Very few incidents of violence or things from the world pushing in on us. So it's one of the reasons we love it here. The other thing that we're focusing on and continuing to focus on is the social emotional wellness of our kids. And that is still a struggle for many of our kids. We saw a real big hit to emotional well-being for our students over COVID, and it's a slow rebound. You know, I think we're starting to see some academic gains in many cases ahead of these social emotional things. One of the areas that we found some wins in this year is our cell phone policy. We have restricted cell phone use for students here at school, and we really appreciate the support that we've received from parents in that. We hope that you had a chance to read some of the literature that was sent out and some of the reasoning for it. We know that there's some issues where parents want their kids to have access to phones, and we've had some parents that have checked them into the office and so forth so that they could have a phone on the walk to and from school and so forth. But I can tell you the incidence of bullying and drama and truancy and being outside of class to hide in the bathrooms, instances of kids that are being distracted, kids that are being influenced by inappropriate materials. Those things have really gone down with the absence of students' phones. And we've seen a tremendous cooperation from our students and a tremendous cooperation from our parents, and we're starting to see some good results. You guys may have just seen just yesterday, the state sued Meta for its influence on students and targeting students and children. We have signed on to a mass action lawsuit that's tied to those harms that social media companies are causing to kids. And what we're really hoping for in the state's action, what we're hoping for in our personal action, is to get more restrictions and less purposeful targeting of our youth. There's a lot of benefit to social media, and there's wonderful things that can happen there. There's really terrible things that can happen for kids as well, and if they're targeted in certain ways and exposed to certain things. So we're hopeful that there'll be some actions taken to be protective of our kids on that, and we'll continue to see some of those benefits. We have a lot of proactive supports that remain that were brought in with COVID, but are still needed. So we still have our full-time social worker, Ms. Travers, here, and you'll see at least monthly information that comes out on essentially a social emotional wellness newsletter. And she's focusing very much on resiliency efforts with kids, as far as building their confidence, building their ability to have disappointment in their life or have things that come up that are challenges and push through. That's one of the things that we're seeing in our students, is that post-COVID, their level of resiliency, their level of ability to push through challenges is challenging, and that's manifesting both in their social interactions and their academic work. So we're seeing lower academics from kids that aren't pushing through that challenge. We're also continuing our SEAL work, which is the social emotional arts learning, but we've expanded that from elementary up into our middle school. When we looked at our survey data, we had a lot of instances of depression, feelings of wanting to self-harm among our 7th graders last school year. And so we wanted to make sure that we're pushing some overt, how do we regulate our emotions? How do we build healthy relationships? So we're doing a lot of overt things through the arts with Mrs. Reed Smith. And then we're continuing our PBIS efforts, which is the positive behavior interventions. So when you see the SOAR tickets and the SOAR assemblies, those types of things, we're really trying to teach pro-social skills to students, both on the playground, using buddy type programs, in the classroom through the teachers. And we were recently recognized through the state PBIS program as a PBIS Silver Award winner. Didn't mean we came in 2nd place. We applied for the Silver Award. It was activities that we were doing, and Mrs. Z has done a really phenomenal job through that PBIS program to start doing some alignment of our supports for students, social emotionally, and that team is now shifting some of their efforts to academic supports and alignments for kids that are, below at above grade level standards. So that's kind of the student health wellness issue. Do we have any questions from that, Jenny? Okay. Facility stuff. Got some exciting things as far as facilities go. Some of you may be aware that we've had a broken glider on the playground for a very long time. We've had a few pieces of equipment on the lower playground that I've kind of seen some wear and tear. I can tell you that we looked to address this issue, I think it was October of 2022, in which we had a purchase order for materials to replace, and those replacement parts did not show up until September of 2023. So we have those in stock, and we're scheduled to have the repairs done on the lower playground over the Thanksgiving break. So if your child has been wanting to glide, their day has finally come. We also had some students that came to me from Miss Stephanie's 2nd grade class and was saying, our playground would be a whole lot better if there were nets on the soccer goals, because whenever I score, I have to run 1,000,000 miles to go get the ball. It seems to kind of defeat the purpose. So we just got some nets down on the soccer field. So we're doing that kind of stuff. But lower playground, a lot of it was repairs, kind of fixing equipment that wasn't really serving its purpose, We're getting some additional stairs to provide access to some of the equipment. So the lower playground will see some of those types of things. But a little bit later in the year, expect to see a big improvement to the lower playground in that our San Pasqual School Foundation, their last year's initiative was to raise money for a shade structure. That shade structure was finally approved by DSA. So DSA is the Department of State Architecture, and they have to approve any building that happens at school, and they are very, very slow. I think there was not a lot built over COVID and a lot being built now. And so they were very, very slow in giving us approvals for a shade structure that was previously approved. I think it's a design build, but we can only move as quickly as they move. But we are optimistic that we'll see a spring install of that. So there's going to be a big shade structure in the lower playground area, on the lower playground. And then we're also looking at improvements to the K1 playground as well. So we were looking at some repairs to the K1 big structures on the K1 playground. And we got to the point where we just decided it's going to make more sense to replace some of those. So we're in the DSA process with that right now. Once that gets approved, we'll be ordering some equipment. We hope by the end of this year, probably likely over the summertime, the way the timelines work, but expect to see some changes out there. The current design is really to take the playground area and put new equipment on there, some additional equipment, and then take some of that wood chip and make it more of a sandbox area. Have to cover it up and keep the critters out. But we get a lot of our little kids that are getting little splinters from the wood chip stuff. So we're looking at options for that. But that K1 project, the new equipment we're looking at has a shade connected to it. So if you've been out on the K1 playground recently, you saw we put a big shade structure out that's an additional eating and snack area. But this one would be some shade for the play, which is really nice. Shade's been a big topic. And then speaking of that, just at our last board meeting, our board has approved a solar energy project for San Pasqual. So we have been talking about solar energy since I've been here, which has been a very long time. A lot of start and stop on that project, but we were finally able to get connected to a company that we feel confident with. Baker Electric is going to be working with us as partners, and we can combine that project with them to do a couple shade car canopies in the west lot by where the preschool is, and then we're planning on putting 3 large ones down on the lower playground to add even more shade down there. So do it canopy style as well. So solar energy, save some money, protect our kids, all really good combinations. And we're doing it through a PPA arrangement. So there's going to be no out-of-pocket costs to the district, but a lot of savings on the energy side of it. So seems to be a win-win. So that's the direction we're moving on that. And then we've done some less visible improvements here at school. We have upgraded our security systems and our phone systems. Both of those were no longer serving us well by way of calls, false alarms. So we've got that fixed. And then we also are waiting on parts to upgrade our PA system. So if you've heard the sadness in our bell when it starts in the morning and the afternoon, that is a bell on its last leg, and we are just waiting for some equipment to replace that. So some exciting things. Last thing I wanted to go over is just some exciting events and activities that are going on here at school. We have really moved into a full-fledged parental involvement and cool things for kids. Want to thank those of you who participated in our Walker Wheel to School Day that PTO put on earlier in the month. Those that came out for parent-teacher conferences, the lunch on the lawn, huge success that we had through our PTO, the book fair, and then we had our store assembly today. So thank you guys for coming out and participating with us on that. And we've got some great things coming up. We are almost over with Red Ribbon Week. This year, we did something a little bit different for Red Ribbon Week. We did have a former DEA agent come out a couple weeks ago and talk to our middle schoolers about the harms of drug use, especially as it relates to fentanyl. We do not have a drug problem among our students here at school, but our students will soon be moving to other areas in which there's likely to be exposure, and we want them to be well educated as far as the harms that are potentially out there. We also sent out to you a video series that recently came out from San Diego County Office of Ed that's put together, led by the former DEA agent that came out and spoke. And so if you're looking for some resources at some point in time, today or in the future, to talk to your kids about drugs and the harms of drugs, there's some really great resources built in there. We finish off our Red Ribbon Week this week with our Harvest Night. So Harvest Night is finally back. We have not had a true Harvest Night since before our COVID times, and we're super excited to bring it back. So if you have not been to Harvest Night, it is an event not to be missed. So come see us. Are there still pre-ticket sales going on or not? Yeah, I don't know if they're still selling pre-ticket sales. They might be, but if not, you'll be able to buy your tickets at the door. Carnival, festival type stuff, chili contests, all sorts of fun things. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for Harvest Night. We also have next week on Tuesday, our traditional costume parade. So on Halloween, which is Tuesday, so if you haven't prepared yourself, Halloween's coming up on Tuesday. We have our costume parade. Most of our students choose to dress up. We do have a big parade through campus. We give out prizes, have all sorts of things, and then we send them back to class with the belief that they'll still be able to learn that day. But it's a fun day, and parents are welcome to join us. So if you do come join us, we would love to have you out. Usually runs from about 8:35, 8:40 till about 9:30 or so. But if you'd like to come out for the costume parade, really good time then. If you have a middle schooler, the first middle school dance is coming up soon, November 3rd. We have our middle school dance, so that's always exciting. Veterans Day assembly is on November 9th. We'll have an assembly to honor our vets. So if you or someone in your family is a veteran, we'd love to honor you. So please consider joining us for that assembly. We do have school off on the 10th of November for Veterans Day. We have a 6th grade play coming up on the 14th of November. November 15th is Family Life Parent Night. So that's always an exciting evening. And what that is, if you have a 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grader, that is a night that we preview for lack of better terms, the sex ed curriculum. So we'll do that with parents to give you an opportunity to take a look at what that curriculum is and opportunity to opt your kids out. So there's a lot of questions about that. It's a great night to come and get answers to it. You're welcome to reach out to me individually, and I can go over that with you. If you are a parent who has gone to those events before, the curriculum has not changed. So the 5th and 6th, I don't think it's changed since the 80s, but the 7th and 8th grade one, it's the same curriculum it's been for quite some time. We are looking at changes and updates to the 7th and 8th grade curriculum to bring it a little bit more modern. 7th and 8th grade curriculum talks a lot about resources and so forth. And when you have a dated curriculum, you have dated resources and you have dated science, essentially. So we'll be looking at that. So you'll probably see some stuff later in the school year about some possible changes to that. But if you've been to these events before, it's the same thing that you'll see. But that is the 15th of November. And then before we know it, November 17th is the end of our first trimester. So minimum day, and then we roll into Thanksgiving break after that. So school year is running very, very quickly. So wanted to take a look, see if we have any questions. There is a thing about Harvest Night. So Harvest Night, we usually take your money in every possible way, but in Harvest Night, cash or check only. So if you're coming to Harvest Night, I don't believe they have any ability to take a credit card. So cash or check if you're coming to Harvest Night to participate. If you haven't looked at the literature, the way that generally works is there is a certain price for admission. It can be packaged together for games and so forth, and then you can buy additional things while you're here. We do have food here, a lot of sweet treats here, all sorts of stuff going on. So any other questions in the... Okay. And that's about all the push out stuff. Do you guys have questions on anything? Is there anything that came up? Anybody online? Any questions that you guys may have as far as anything that's happening at school, going to happen at school? All right. A quiet crowd is usually good. Well, hopefully you guys found this helpful. We will do another one. Typically, we do about 3 of these a year. We do them more often if there's some pressing issues that are of interest to the community, but we appreciate you taking your time with us. If you have any questions or if this brought up any questions for you, please don't hesitate to call or email. I'll be happy to answer those for you. But I really want to thank you guys for joining us today. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully this was helpful. And last but not least, thank you so much for your partnership. I know that there's a lot of things that we are doing here at school. We ask a lot of our school community. We love our school community and appreciate it. But thank you guys for being such great partners. It is really one of the things that makes our school uniquely different and special is the partnership that we have among our school community and the fabulous staff we have within our school. So if you are on either side of that, you have my gratitude, appreciation for everything that you're doing. So thank you guys very much. Enjoy. We're not quite to the weekend yet, but enjoy it. It'll be here before you know it. All right. Thanks again. Bye.